going on?
I am so I am so sorry.
It's
Some
okay.
I have a new iPhone, and when I'm with patients, I put it on like focus. I took it
Hmm.
off focus to receive your calls, but I don't know, man. I don't know.
It's working.
Anyway,
We're through.
we are through. I am Doctora Latina. Also, I guess in English people call me Draw Latina. I
That's
don't
me.
care.
Now I'm gonna do. No, how do we regularly say it? Let's bring that out.
Well, everybody in other channels just says Draw Latina, but it's really Doctora for doctor, Latina.
Doctora
You see,
Latina. Doctora
see,
Latina. Yeah, I could do that.
see. But this is fine. I don't really care what you call me. It's fine. But I have a lot of thoughts. I want to see if I can summarize some of the highlights of my thoughts. And I have a little channel that I haven't really posted anything for a year, and I might just do a little autism slash, you know, behavioral thing with children as a sort of a summary, because I just want to first of all say that every child and adult that's on the spectrum, it's called the spectrum because everyone, like you were saying earlier, is unique. Not You can't really draw too many broad brushing statements about people on the spectrum. But that being said, I guess the first thing I want to say is, were I to have my child or one of my patients with autism spectrum go missing, I would really ask law enforcement to either hire, or I would beg people to put money in to hire somebody who has great experience with children and adolescents on the spectrum. Because unless you understand fully what this young man is about, his unique attributes for his level of autism and his type of autism, we really can't begin to make an adequate search. And from the beginning of the interviews that were made with these parents, the public interviews, now I don't know what's happened behind the scenes, but to date, I'm going to tell you, as somebody who does hundreds of psychiatric evaluations of people on the spectrum, ADHD, psychosis, etc.,
Hmm.
I have yet to hear anything from the parents, from the police, from anybody about who Sebastian really is. It is just not sufficient to say, well, he's going through, I'm quoting the mother, I'm paraphrasing, he's going through adolescence and he doesn't like that he's getting a little mustache. Or he didn't get along well with some children, or he had boundary issues, space issues. Like all of that is just very, like, it's just like Johnny Appleseed, throwing out seeds into the air. It's not what I call like a really systematic presentation of the attributes and the essence of this young man. So unless we have that, and unless the parents really can provide that, I think that everybody's gone on a wild goose chase, including law enforcement. And with all due respect to law enforcement, it does get in my craw that they say that people on social media, are exaggerating and we're making speculation. Well, they have not provided the public with a really clear understanding of who this young man is. Okay, so that's number one. And I find that extremely frustrating because, as I said, I don't think that we have that. So I don't think that any of the investigations is really been adequate. Number two, I am gonna broad brush some of the based on the adolescent males in my practice for the past 25 years who are on the spectrum, and that is to say, yes, they are. They tend to people on the spectrum, high, let's say level one, we call it, which is used to be called Asperger's. It's no longer. That's an antiquated term. They do tend to have, sort of rigid, structured schedules, what they like and don't like in terms of food, clothing, barefoot, not barefoot. There are a lot of sensory issues. But my experience over the years with young people who apparently this Sebastian is a level one, which is considered, quote, high functioning autism. And according to what the school says, he's friendly and he was mainstreamed in his class, and there didn't seem to be a lot of issues. My experience is that those that level of functioning child does not, NOT does not elope or tend to run away, except in one case, and I'm going to tell you about that. Where
Wow.
I've had patients who do elope, including in my office, is when they either are level 2, which is they need more support, or when level 3, I've had quite a number who are generally nonverbal, they cannot express themselves, they may cognitively and IQ-wise be totally intact, but because of the way they're wired, their brain is wired, they cannot verbally express themselves, they become very frustrated, and they can become very agitated, and they can literally run away out of my office. I've had 16, 17-year-old guys that are 6'5" and 280 pounds and literally try to push over the staff and they run out the door. So that does happen. But my point is that you got to understand the particular child, and if they're going to elope, and I have level 1 functioning sometimes will elope from my office when they get frustrated and they can't express themselves, they will get up, but there's always a warning, and there's always a physical warning. Okay, and then they walk out, and they do. I've had a couple patients recently even, they do elope from my office, and then the parent goes and finds them. Where does the parent find the child? The child, I swear, as God is my witness, doesn't run even 150 yards away, 100 yards, 50 yards. The child, in their frustration, is trying to get space from the stimulus and the sensory input, which is overstimulating them. So they will step out, and they might go outside, and they might sit down in the corner and just stay there, and they'll self-soothe until a parent or guardian or caregiver can come out, or I can come out and say, hey, buddy, what's going on? Tell me what's happening, or whatever. So this whole story, or this whole narrative that has been woven, that he may have gone 50 miles on foot, or even that 1 mile running to the that little pond area. I mean, I'm just speaking for my own self with my 25 years experience, but that I'm just one person, right? But I've
Absolutely.
never seen that happen. I've never seen that happen. Now, all that being said, what I have seen happen, and I've tried to ask this in several chats, and the response has been, well, the stepdad has said, absolutely not. He has no access to social media. But I'm going to tell you right now, my young patients, currently adolescents, young adults, whomever, you may think as a parent, your child, whether or not your child's on the spectrum, has absolutely no access to social media. They are younger than you even, and I know you're a young chap. They're kids in their teens. There are like these links and hidden links where they do get on social media. And I've had patients in my practice who get on, they're talking to a stranger, and when the parent brings the computer in, I say to the child and to the parent, this is an adult. This may be a child gaming thing, but this person is luring and grooming your child.
Wow.
And so for me to hear from the get-go that, oh, no, we are very strict parents, there's no way, guess what? There is way. And I'm going to tell you, even I am a mom, and I have she's 22 and I have a 25-year-old. So it wasn't too long ago that they were 15, 16, 17. And despite all of my experience, I work with kids with internet addictions, gaming addictions,
Wow.
all kinds of internet addictions. I'm going to tell you right now, no matter how much knowledge I have about technology and the internet, my kids got over on me. They had all kinds of secret ways to even make themselves the parent, the guardian. They got over on the parental controls. So this is not uncommon. And it doesn't mean that if that did happen, that Chris and Seth and Katie are, quote, quote, bad parents. I would just say they need to open up their eyes and recognize especially if this child is high functioning, that yes, he can have access to strangers who could have lured him. So those are things that I wanted to say about Sebastian. And basically, we don't have enough information yet. And I wish that the presser, to me, it was what we call pablum, like giving baby oatmeal. They just gave us little baby oatmeal today, like we're babies and that we're stupid. We really didn't get any information from these presser, right? As far as
100%.
as far as the eyeglasses go, take the damn eyeglasses to the damn optometrist where he goes, and in 2 seconds or less, they can read the prescription and they can say this matches his prescription or it doesn't. So this is not mysterious. You don't have to run DNA testing on who touched the glasses. Just take those eyeglasses to an optometrist. That's it. So.
I love the educational standpoint that you're bringing to today's show. I love it so much. And some people just don't understand. Just like me, I have my best friend is autistic, but I still I come to understand that they're all different and unique in
really
their own
are.
way.
And I think that a lot of people, this is one other thing I want to say, because I sort of have a mission. It's one of my burning missions in life, really, to try to advocate for my patients on the spectrum and to try to, when I go into the school system and work with the IEPs, which are the individual educational
That was
plans
me.
of
I
the
was in the
students.
IEP. I was in IEP
Right.
my whole entire childhood.
There you go. But like I, as a physician, I will go into the school system, which a lot of physicians probably don't. But I want the IEP team, the special ed team, to really hear what is unique about my patient. The fact that autism historically has been looked at through what I call a prism of pathology, a prism of deficit, of weakness. And I believe strongly, and I'm going to email you some of the handouts that one of my colleagues has recently made, turning the table and looking at the autism spectrum, especially those at level 1, like apparently this Sebastian is, through a prism not of pathology and weakness, but through a prism of strength and of creativity and a lot of positive qualities. So I just wanted to say that piece. Now, the last thing I want to say, and I do appreciate, by the way, I know I'm talking a mile a minute, but I'm trying to get it all in real quick.
Oh, it's
That
fine.
you have listened to me, and I appreciate that your chat has been open to listening to my strong point of view.
Yes, ma'am.
What bothers me the most, T-REV, is if you go back, and I in some ways wish at some point you could clip that very first interview that Katie and Chris made. And if you, I mean, words are so powerful. And there were so many discrepancies in what she had to say, because what she said was that she was on the sofa for 3 hours speaking to Chris, who was in Memphis, and that her son went to bed, and there was a whole little story around that. That she said she fell asleep during the 3 hours and that she awakened at midnight. And that from there, she didn't check on the child, but she went to bed. So I'm thinking, wait a second, how could you in one side of your mouth say that you were for 3 hours with your husband on the telephone, and yet at the same time you said you were sleeping on the sofa? And if you hear growling in the background, by the way, that's my puppy right now. So there's discrepancy right from the get-go. And so then the final question is that you've been asking everybody, is there foul play? And I don't care if LE just looked into the camera today in the presser and said, no evidence of foul play. Here's my thing. Autism spectrum disorder, attention deficit disorder, those are 2 developmental disorders. They are considered disabilities. They are protected diagnoses by the American with Disabilities Act, which is a federal law that protects people with those diagnoses. Those, especially children, but even adults, are considered vulnerable people. And as such, when you have a child who is vulnerable, it is incumbent upon us as parents. And I will tell you that I do have one child who is somewhat on the spectrum and is severe ADHD. And even though she's of age now, I know that as a parent, I must be vigilant and I must be held to a higher standard to protect my even adult child. Now we're talking about a 15-year-old. So let's go back to the question. Is there foul play? I would say there's, at the very minimum, negligence. There has been negligent parenting. Because I'm going to tell you right now, I don't know any parent that I deal with, including myself, that would go to bed and not check in on my child, even if they're not on the spectrum, when they're 14, 15, 16, because invariably they're into something, right? But especially a child that is vulnerable. So that's all I have to say. Do I sound judgmental? Damn Skippy. I am judgmental here because I've lived it and I continue to live it. And we are called as parents to be the highest standard that we can to protect our children. And this lad, Sebastian, is a vulnerable child. My theory is one of three things. Either somebody did indeed lure him away, either through social media, even if the parents don't want to believe that, or through maybe being at the bowling alley or whatever, or because children who are truly on the spectrum do have what we call emotional dysregulation, and they can get what we call autistic meltdown, where they literally, I've never had this experience with any of with my children, but I have had it with my patients. I have seen it in my own office where they melt down and they get bigger than life, and they might tear a door off or try to break a window. And then when they're in that state, a parent can get very angry. So my role as a physician is to try to help the parent recognize the sort of clouds on the horizon before the child gets a meltdown. So if in this case this child had a meltdown, it is not uncommon for a parent to lose their shit. And sometimes, unfortunately, parents will hit a child. This is not right, but maybe Katie never had the correct, I don't know, if she had the correct, therapies and interventions to help the parent, because a big part of dealing with children on the spectrum and children with ADHD is our helping the parents to know how to be a better parent. So, man, this thing is so deep, and it breaks my heart for this child. And I pray for this child, and I don't know, did she lose her shit? Did the husband lose his shit? Did this boy take a walk, and then somebody did pick him up? Was he lured? I don't know.
No, so to think that this 15-year-old didn't have no internet access, you call BS on that? Allegedly?
Oh, I don't even believe in allegedly. I'm going to say my impression. That covers me, legally. My impression and my experience is that I don't think I've yet met a teenager that hasn't had or gotten, very cleverly access to internet, even if it's through their Chromebook at the high school. That's how I often see it, T-REV, is that the kid takes the Chromebook that allegedly the school says our IT department, we have it clamped down. There's no way any of our students can get on the internet. And I can tell you right now they do, because they come to my office, they show me how they did it. So, I think we all need to have an open mind. I really hope that LE, if they haven't already done it, will enlist an expert in adolescents with autism, because that will lend a lot more credibility to their investigation, and I believe it'll lend hope. I really do.
My question would be, how might how might Sebastian's autism affect his behavior or decisions before becoming lost or separated from familiar environments?
Okay, and that's an excellent question, and that's where something, I don't know if you've heard of this, that we call it theory of the mind. Have you ever heard of theory of the mind?
No, not the way
Okay,
you're putting it.
okay. So theory of the mind is a developmental brain thing that usually by age 4 to 5, children will develop what we call theory of the mind. And I'll give you an example of what that is.
Yeah.
I know that you are running your show right now.
Mm-hmm.
I know that you take phone calls.
Yes, ma'am.
I know that you generally try to shut us up. Myself, you've let me go on and on by winding yourself down at the end and saying, I have 2 things to say to you. Be vigilant and lock your doors. So I, as somebody who has theory of the mind, have figured out what your sort of pattern is, and that I can tell, even before you say that you're ready for us to wind down and shut up, or maybe hush. So theory of the mind is to be able, for me, to look at another person and say, what's he kind of thinking, read the social cues, etc. And that happens at around age 4 to 5.
Mm-hmm.
Many, many people on the spectrum, while they chronologically and even cognitively, even their IQ is very high and they can do math and all this, they often never develop theory of the mind, or it's very, very primitive, and you have to work on helping them figure it out. So your question is great. Once he got outside, let's say he did get outside because he was mad, or let's say his parent locked him outside. Once they get outside their familiar environment, if they don't have theory of the mind, then they can't imagine, like, oh, I'm in a different place. That person looks like a stranger. They don't look safe. They've invited me into their car. Oh, I'll get in because I get into my mom's car. You see what I'm saying? So
Right.
yes, he's at much higher risk, and that's why we say that somebody like Sebastian is vulnerable, because he most likely does not possess theory of the mind.
Mm-hmm. That's a
So I hope this is not too detailed for
no,
you.
no, no, no. I actually appreciate it because I mean, these are questions that I think about. And another one that I have for you: in light of Sebastian's disappearance, what advice do you have for parents or guardians of children with autism to prepare for or prevent similar situations like this from happening?
Well, I think, first of all of us as parents, myself included, because hey, guess what? I've made my mistakes. We must be humble enough to recognize that in this day and age of technology, our children, I mean, I swear to God, man, I have 5 and 6 and 7-year-old patients that I treat, like, let's say with ADHD. They can run circles around me when they pull out their laptop. They are like unbelievable. So for us as parents, not to inform ourselves is dangerous. And it's not enough, guys, to say, well, I have parental controls on my child's devices. Because guess what? Kids they can override it. And then they know how to get secret apps that only they and their friends communicate with. So whether a child is developmentally delayed, let's say with autism, ADHD, whatever, or your child is neurotypical and has no mental health issues or developmental issues, I think to protect our children, we must be humble enough to say we have to learn about technology, and we have to try to, and it's not possible, but we have to try to stay one step ahead of our children.
And my thing, another question somebody actually asked in chat was, do you think that he's alive still?
I mean, I think it depends on, well, what is the theory here? I mean, did he go
Yeah.
outside? and have a little meltdown,
Mm-hmm.
and did he go to a corner and then get hypothermia and die? But guys, in my experience, he wouldn't have been beyond 50 yards. They would have found him. You see what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
for me, I'm like, was he picked up after he went outside and wandered a bit and he had a meltdown, and he went outside and got angry. And P.S., even if somebody doesn't like to be without shoes, if they are having an autistic meltdown, even if it's a mild one, and they need to get away from the triggers of them being upset, they're going to run outside, whether they have their shoes on or not. But my experience is that they don't go far. So he would have been, in my opinion, he would have been found. So to me, the options are, did somebody pick him up and they're, God willing, not trafficking him and hopefully holding him and he's safe and or not safe, not, sometimes we see people trafficked and they're not safe, but at least they're alive, right?
Yeah.
Or did somebody, has somebody absconded with him within the family? Because there's, this is a very, from what we've been presented, it's a very chaotic family. It's a blended family on many levels. It's not just like one stepfather and a mother and then Seth. But, Chris has been married 5 times, and then this Nina girl got on, a whole other thing.
Yeah, that one was different.
It was different. And I mean, I some other time I'm going to give you my opinion on that. But, this is not only a blended family, which most families are these days, but there's a lot of turmoil. So I don't know, guys. Did somebody say, well, he's going to go to the dad, so let's motive, let's hide him out, or I don't know. But I think there's a great possibility that he's still alive. That's what I believe. Unless, as I said earlier, he had a major meltdown or there was a major disagreement, and the mother, because apparently the father was in Memphis, or the stepdad was in Memphis the whole time, she lost her shit, and something bad happened, and then he helped to dispose. Right? I don't know. But, I haven't given you guys any more information on the theory because we're all in the same boat here. We don't know.
Absolutely, 100%. 100%.
But
And this story blows my mind. I don't know.
No, it's something that I think shines light, for me. It shines light on adolescence. It shines light on autism. And the great, great responsibility we have as a parent, or even if you're not a parent, as an adult, to protect vulnerable people. And your question, that you asked me, how can parents of children on the spectrum protect their children? I think that the main thing is to really understand what is autism and what are the specific behaviors that your child demonstrates when they maybe get overwhelmed. And the other piece is that I think parents of children on the autism spectrum, they should get into a support group with other parents, because it can be a very lonely, scary, proposition to rear a child with a disability.
This thing, I don't get it, but what role can mental health support play for the family and community affected by the disappearance of the young person with autism?
Is that a question?
Yeah,
Somebody's asking?
yeah. Like what? That's a question I'm asking. Like I'm just curious,
Okay,
because there's a lot of people out searching for him, right? And there's a tons of people in the community, and if they come across them, how should they interact with them?
Oh, well, first of all, in terms of general mental health, our medical system and our mental health system in this country are completely fractured and broken. And sadly, guys, as most people probably in the chat know, try to get yourself in with a psychiatrist. It's virtually impossible, and that's very sad. For me, I had a certain number of, I see a certain number of patients just free, and a certain number for like $10, and I go up from there. I have a sliding scale because I know that there are barriers to access for many, many people. like I said earlier, the parents need to get help with co-parenting. Well, how do you get that if you can't even afford and or access, a therapist or a psychiatrist? I think there's a misunderstanding, like if indeed for Sebastian, from what I think his school said, that he's a friendly, kind, sort of gets along with everybody, and he's mainstreamed with an IEP in a regular classroom. I don't think that we have to act any differently than you would act if you saw another child that seemed lost or whatever. Just being reassuring, saying who you are, and saying, I think you might be lost, people are looking for you, and then making sure that you contact the local police. But I don't think there's like anything to be afraid of.
Oh my God, I
at all.
got to ask you this question, and it's just one that I'm thinking of right now. In terms of
Okay.
survival skills, how might Sebastian's autism impact his ability to seek shelter, food, or water? And your
Well, again,
professional
yeah,
experience of knowing and working with autistic
right.
children, how would you, be able to, I don't know, what's your thoughts on that question?
Yeah. I think, again, it depends on where you're brought up, how you're brought up. I have patients who, like, apparently Sebastian loves to fish and he knows how to swim. And, I have other patients that go camping. They know how to light a fire. They know how to sleep out in 30-degree weather because they're in the scouts. It all depends on, and that's why I don't think we can broad brush an entire diagnosis. I remember the mother in her first interview, I believe, saying, somebody said, would he know to get a city bus? Well, of course, they live in a rural area. And she kind of cried and said, he's never been on a public transportation. So again, somebody that has been very sheltered and let's say lives in the rural area and they somehow find themselves in a city, that's an example of theory of the mind. They see somebody else getting on the bus and it might be hard for them to put it together that they can get on a bus and they can pay some money. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because a lot of times what we do is we take a child out or an adolescent and say, okay, now today we're gonna work on how do you get on the school bus? How when you see it coming, you got to stand back, blah 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 blah. So yes, I don't believe, guys, that in 5 weeks this young man could be living outside, off radar, in a prepper mode or whatever you want to call it. My hope is that he found shelter and found
This
help
is what
from an adult.
it's funny you said that because I was gonna say, are there particular type of environments that a child with autism might be drawn to avoid, especially when barefooted?
Right. Well, then that's why I think that the law enforcement has said folks should they even said today, like, if you're afraid to look in your backyard or on your property in sheds or whatever, you call us and we'll come look. Because I think invariably, anybody, whether you're on the spectrum or not, would try to find shelter from rain, from cold, etc. But again, what is weird to me, T-REV, is that if they truly did an exhaustive, search, even within 300 yards radius of his house and found nothing, that is just so strange to me. For the fact that he's on the spectrum. If it were a teenager that's neurotypical, man, that kid might be in Europe by now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, this is I can't fathom where he could possibly be. I just can't. And I don't know if you can discuss this, but can you discuss the psychological impact of sudden change or displacement on an autistic individual?
Well, yes, and that because routine is so important to them. I have patients who literally wear the same shirt or the same sweater every day for 15 years. They won't take it off. You have to practically bribe them to get it washed.
Mm-hmm.
And so every aspect of their life is extremely routine. So you pull them out of that routine and they can melt down. But again, I have such a variety of patients. I can't say for one person it would be this, for the other that. But if he truly had this very sort of regimented routine that he clung to, then suddenly being plucked out of that and placed or finding himself in an unusual place could be, disastrous psychiatrically, frankly. And then what medicine, guys? I've never figured this out. Does anybody know? Because the parents alluded to the fact that he's on a medication, but they didn't say what, and they were concerned that he hadn't been on the medicine. Does anybody have any idea?
That's a great question. I don't know what medicine it is. I've heard people talk about this medication, but I'm thinking the same thing that you're thinking. What medication are we talking about? You
You know,
know?
because and I'll give you for instance. So for some folks on the spectrum, because of their emotional dysregulation, I have to prescribe what's called a mood stabilizer, aka an antipsychotic. Not because they're psychotic, but it acts on the part of the brain that regulates, the ups and downs of rage and meltdown and stuff. That's very different. If somebody needs that medicine to sort of stay calm and doesn't have it, that's a lot more, risky, right? Than
Right.
if somebody's on a medication, even just like an ADHD medicine, because lots of people forget their ADHD medicine. And a
I
lot
was
of
on it my whole
kids,
life. I had to put it down. It made me a zombie.
oh yeah, and a lot of people that are on the spectrum have ADHD and vice versa. So I don't know what medication he was on. But if it was an ADHD medicine, it would probably be nothing. It would be no problem. But if it was a mood stabilizer, it could really destabilize him psychiatrically.
Yeah, that is. And my thing is, I just don't understand where he could have went. Just with the non-verbal and limited verbal communication skills that could
But
possibly
did he
affect
have?
his ability to ask for help. I mean, that's the part that's bothering me, and I don't know
But
if
did
you
they
could answer
actually
that.
say? But do they actually say that? See, they haven't given a really clear. Like, is he truly not limited? I mean, sorry, is he truly limited in his verbal skill, or is it just they've been so sort of vague?
That's what I'm
I don't
saying. They
know.
haven't given us the information, and based off of things that
No.
I've learned educationally looking this up by covering this case, I've seen that some do have limited verbal communication skills, but some don't. So I'm wondering if he is one that does have that problem or doesn't. And that's what I've been trying to find out is more about
Okay,
his personality.
but I think that you and we, all of us, can sort of glean that he has good verbal skills in the fact that the school, apparently, this is what I understand, said that he was mainstreamed, that he had no behavioral problems really at school, that, I think he's level one, guys, because it's level two, autism, one needs, a lot of my patients with level two need, even in the school, in grammar school, they have to have a one-on-one that follows them to every classroom. And even those level twos of my patients still are quite verbal. It's level three patients of mine that, can't really talk. They can't express themselves at all. But I don't think we're dealing with that. If I were, a betting person based on the little bit of information we've gotten about Sebastian.
There is very little. I don't know if you can answer this one either, but what role does routine play in the life of someone with autism, and how could the disruption of routine affect Sebastian? For him being outside barefooted, I mean, you're obviously, if you take off, I don't
Right.
know. That's just that's another question that I have running through my mind.
Well, that goes through, the issue around wearing the same clothes, eating the same foods every day, maybe having the same little circle of friends, even if it's one friend. Any of that disruption can be it can really undo somebody psychologically that's on the spectrum.
Ask about Everybody's asking to ask you about Nina. They keep saying weigh in on Nina. Wait, she said
Okay,
she
I
saved
will. I'm
that,
gonna.
but you can if you
No,
want.
I will. I'm gonna give you. I know the chat's gonna be like, yeah, right, because I am. You can see I'm a little bit talkative. I'm gonna just say this. I have a lot of patients with complex PTSD from SA through childhood, from DV, from being in a war, whatever, right?
Yes,
And it's
ma'am.
not all the same. But what I'm going to tell you is, from what if I'm out of breath, it's with my dog. I'm walking my dog up and down, taking
Oh,
her
it's
outside,
okay.
inside.
It's okay. We
Um,
understand.
with PTSD, I have never the kind of sort of information dumping. I know that's not a very nice word to say, but I'm going to use that because I don't know what else to say. That over 2-hour period of time that Nina did in public to the world through a young man who can't be more than 22 as the quote interviewer is something that I've only seen relegated to the therapy office or a psychiatrist, a social worker, where somebody is able to completely open themselves up. And in opening themselves up to all of that trauma, they begin to relive it. There's no doubt in my mind that a lot of what she said resonated in a very true and authentic way, that this is a person that most likely is suffering from complex PTSD. But what I found alarming and troubling for me and stunning is that somebody with such profound complex PTSD would just let the whole world know the entire story. And that, to me, was inappropriate. And I'll tell you why it's inappropriate. It's inappropriate, most of all, and this is my opinion, for Nina. Because when I go to court and when, let's say, I have patients with PTSD that are involved in divorce or whatever, somebody on the chat the other night, when I made a comment that I said, I think this is very, sort of risky and dangerous for Nina.
I
They were
remember
like,
you
her
saying that
attorney,
too. That stuck in my mind when you wrote that.
and somebody said her attorney gave her permission. And my response was, I would question the attorney's, decision making, because when you unleash that kind of trauma, you have to be able to have somebody there afterwards that's going to pick you up and say, let's walk through what you just shared with me or with the world or whatever. And in my experience with like the courts, family court, divorce attorneys, etc., I've never ever had any attorney say to the client, go ahead and tell it all to the public. What we usually are asked to do, even when I'm asked to evaluate somebody for the courts, and we just saw this in the Connecticut case of that, I can't think, Doulos or whatever, I don't know if you followed that, where he murdered his wife and the girlfriend just got found guilty. But anyway,
I don't think I've seen that.
all of her psychiatric evaluation was completely sealed, as were the children's. The courts sealed it. Why? Because it's so sensitive. Yeah, I just don't think it's appropriate. And the biggest reason it's not appropriate for Nina is twofold. One is that it could trigger flashbacks, meltdown, etc. And number two, it could be weaponized against her in court because she went on TV or YouTube and she made proclamations and assertions about her history.
So that could be used against her in court.
Yes. How police say anything that you say can and will be used to you in the court of law or whatever.
That's like, so if somebody's out there speaking on my name and I'm having a problem, I could use that in the court of law.
I mean, technically you could. Yes. Because, because she made tons of allegations. They could all be well-founded. But, all it takes is somebody to clip one little piece of it and it can get distorted,
Right.
I mean, I saw that on Nancy Grace last night. This poor professor was trying to explain about the possibility of drowning with that Riley kid in Nashville. He said one thing, and she's like, oh, no. So you're telling me blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, he didn't say that. He did not say that. But it can be turned. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if it was the wisest thing to do. And I say this only for her mental health and her legal health.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see where you're going with that. It's a good point. Different perspective and very educational point too. It's not just a thrown out. Well, I don't believe this chick. It's
No,
an
I mean,
explanation that's broken down. I think you wonderfully broke that down. And even with people who disagree with it, you gave a very good detailed breakdown on why. So I appreciate that.
but let me just say one last thing before you tell me to lock my door. Vigilant.
I wasn't there yet, but I'm just
Yeah,
saying
you're
like that.
almost there. You're almost there.
Come
You're
on,
almost
you're funny.
there.
You're funny. I love you.
That's
You're
okay.
funny.
But I'm going to tell you one thing. So that when now I forgot. Wait, what did you say about? Yeah, breaking it down. I'm going to tell you as a practitioner. Let's pretend as a practitioner, I had a patient that Nina were my patient, and we signed all kinds of HIPAA releases. And she said, "I want to go on YouTube." I would tell her, absolutely not. Not only for you, but for me, for my medical license, for my protection of you and your well-being. It would be what I would call contraindicated. I would absolutely not want my patient to do that.
Yeah, I definitely I get it. I get it. Somebody said I respectfully disagree that I feel that Nina was very brave to come forward and was caring about other people that are at risk. I could get that too, Tabby. I
But
see
you
it.
know what? The last true last thing I'm going to say, what I wrote somewhere, I think Nina could have come out and in 10 to max 15 minutes have said, I've had a history with this individual. It was grueling. I have X number of children not by him, share a baby with him. It was something that has caused me strife, grief, trauma, etc. And right now I'm worried about Sebastian because of some of the behaviors that I am not going to disclose that Chris, enacted on my own children. And that would have been enough. You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So I guess what I'm saying is she could have had the same message and just made it very quick. That's all.
I get what you're saying. Instead of taking the whole 2 hours to break down full blown stories with details in there, that could be used against her, like you're saying.
Yeah, it can be weaponized. But I want to say, if Nina's listening, I absolutely believe that you've been traumatized. And I absolutely, it really hurt my heart to hear the depth of her trauma and her grief. So I don't think necessarily she was doing this for like some sort of clout chasing or whatever they call it. I don't think so. I could be wrong, but no, I believe what she said. I just worry about her.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. You worry about something happening to her, but those things, like it seems like Chris allegedly is the type to go and use those type of things. Well, look, she's bashing me on the internet because of this case, and I can see what you're saying. It causing an issue in their trial coming up.
Yes.
I see that.
So,
That's a great point that you're making, and I'm actually didn't even think about that. That hey, damn, they might go and clip this from this podcast, and the lawyer might be his lawyer might be over it, checking through it.
So, yeah. But anyway, I want to say one last thing, and that is that I hope that you remain vigilant and that you lock your doors at night.
Always will.
Okay.
And I thank you for your educational standpoint from today's show. This was a wonderful phone call, especially and touching up on autism. Thank you so much for doing that and educating everybody who is here listening. God bless you. What, Doctora Latina?
Yeah, Doctora Latina, sí. And I thank you. It was an honor and a privilege to be able to be invited up. So thank you so much, T-REV. And I'm just going to jump back into chat now.
Thank you so much. I shared your channel too in the comments so people could check you out. There's people saying they wanted to check your channel out. So I hope you don't mind that I shared it.
Not at all. No. No, not at all. That's fine.
Like
okay,
I followed you on Kylie Rodney. So even you didn't know me then, but I followed the stuff that you did on Kylie Rodney case when I first came in, and I loved you then. So thank you so much for coming up. It honestly was an honor to have you on here because I've been following you since my start, my journey on YouTube. So thank you so much. Doctora Latina.
Sí, gracias, muy amable. Adiós.
Thank you. Shout out to her. Good phone call. Great phone call. Great phone call. So educational, ladies and gentlemen. Very, very educational phone call. Thank you, Jalen. Thank you, Melissa. I appreciate you guys. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I've been following her too for a long time. I've been subscribed to her channel